Glad you're here. We'll get started today by singing our national anthem, led by Jim Smithwick and Rusty Pass. Please remain standing for the invocation offered today by Jim Morris.
I'd like to share with you today the cadet prayer from the United States Military Academy at West Point, written in the early 20s by Chaplain Clayton Wheat. Of note, pulling us together, all the service academies are publicly funded, and we are all taxpayers. I'd also like to share the fact that the four-way Rotary test, or the things we think, say, or do, I believe there are some very common themes here in this. I welcome each of you to pray in your faith as I will pray in mine. O God, our Father, thou searcher of human hearts, help us to draw near to thee in sincerity and truth. May our religion be filled with gladness, and may our worship of thee be natural. Strengthen and increase our admiration for honest dealing and clean thinking, and suffer not our hatred of hypocrisy and pretense ever to diminish. Encourage us in our endeavors to live above the common level of life. Make us to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. Never be content with a half-truth when the whole can be won. Endow us with the courage that is born of loyalty to all that is noble and worthy, that scorns to compromise with vice and injustice, and knows no fear when truth and right are in jeopardy. Guard us against flippancy and irreverence in the sacred things of life. Grant us new ties of friendship and new opportunities of service. Kindle our hearts in fellowship of those of a cheerful countenance, and soften our hearts with sympathy for those who sorrow and suffer. Help us to maintain the honor of the Corps untarnished and unsullied, and to show forth in our lives the ideals of West Point in doing our duty to thee and to our country. All of which we ask in the name of the great friend and master of all. Amen.
Okay, you may be seated. As you're getting comfortable, I'll remind you to put some money in the cart bucket. There's a blue bucket on each table. And I'd like to ask someone for every table to hold the bucket up, pick it up, and hold it up in the air. And if everyone would go ahead and contribute to it, we'd sure appreciate it. All the money goes to support Alzheimer's research. To welcome, visiting Rotarians and guests, we have Darren Thomas.
Testing. Can you hear me? A little closer. Testing. All right. Good afternoon, Rotarians. Hope everyone had a great weekend, and feel as though I need to reintroduce myself after having a bit of a hiatus as a result of work. But it's always good to be here at the start of a week and also start of a new month. We have visiting Rotarians. We have Beaver Hardy from Columbia East. Beaver. We have Mr. Jeremiah Davis from the St. Andrews Rotary. Jeremiah. And traveling all the way from Stirling, Nebraska, Mr. Jim Schaefer. All right, Rotarians with guests.
I'm Carrie Powers, and I have Evan Ashton here. He is the Vice President of Partnerships for the Columbia Fireflies.
Hi, I'm Libby Gober. Welcome back, Darren. And I want to introduce my guest, Sandra Owensby. Sandra is relatively new to Columbia, from close by Spartanburg, but not too far away. She is the new Executive Director of the Rotary Center. For many of us, that would be the Capital Senior Center, and so many of us are seniors, so we should appreciate that. Welcome, Sandra.
Hello, I am Ed McDowell. I'm the guest of Darren Thomas. I'm delighted to be here. I'm a retired United Methodist preacher, and the food is good. I'll continue to enjoy it today and enjoy the friend and fellowshipping time. Thank you very much.
I'm Reese Williams. My guest today is Jackie Pavlicek, who's one of my law partners. Jackie was recently put on the board of the Columbia World Affairs Council. She also formerly worked for the Court of Appeals. You remember when Judge Williams was here, so she came to work with us from there. Initially, Jackie was working for me, but I'm now working for Jackie.
I am Jack Cup, and I have the privilege of speaking on behalf of a person who is just today as Jeff Chambers, who worked with him at the Technology Alliance.
My guest today is David Jordan. He's also my dad, which is an important thing, but a long time Rotarian.
Good afternoon. I'm Lane Ligon. My guest today is Adam Piper, who is Deputy Chief of Staff for the Attorney General's Office and a friend of our speaker today, Bryan Stirling. Thank you.
Any other Rotarians who guessed? And let me also add, I thank Ed McDowell for being my guest today. Ed is a longtime friend, my former pastor at Francis Burns United Methodist. Ed is former pastor at Trenton Road United Methodist. He is a retired Methodist minister. He's also a candidate for Columbia City Council District 2. And thanks, Ed, for being here. He's also married to the vice president of my company, Ms. Jeannie McDowell. Thanks, Rotarians. Have a great week.
Okay, health and happiness this week will be brought by Rusty DePass.
Good morning, or afternoon. I hope everybody is recovering from all this activity we've had here in Columbia the last few weeks. And I want to begin by giving you some good news, which is that the South Carolina State Fair presented to Roger Colson for the Salvation Army a check today for $100,000. Wow. I want to also have some sad news. Some of you may know already that Glenn Kalk's mother, Mrs. Isla Morris, died last Tuesday. Her funeral was Friday at the First Baptist Church. And Glenn, we certainly sorry about that, and we'll certainly be thinking about you and your family. Carrie Powers has asked me to remind everyone, or tell everyone, that about the live and silent auction, eat, drink, bid at the 20th annual Chuck Larson auction, where the auctioneer will be none other than our famous and incredulous Jimmy Derrick.
What any of those words mean.
That's the reason I used them. Also, Wine and Jazz on the Boardwalk, Friday, November the 13th. When is the other thing? That's Tuesday, November the 3rd. The auction is Tuesday, November the 3rd at the River Center at Saluda Shoals, 5 to 9. That's tomorrow, by the way. And then Wine and Jazz on the Boardwalk, Friday, November 13th, 6 to 9, Saluda Shoals Park. And $30 a person, $50 a couple, and tickets are available from the ERMO Chamber of Commerce, where Carrie has recently taken over as the executive director. And I'm sure she will do her usual fine job. I want to tell you that quickly about two of our members that we don't see much anymore. Mick Lurie, as you know, has moved to Atlanta to be near his son, who's a doctor there. He and Nancy live in an old folks home. I think it's a pretty nice old folks home, but they are doing well. I talked to Nancy this morning. She assured me that Mick was not there, as a matter of fact, but that Mick has all of his mental faculties, and he just doesn't move around as well as he used to. But they are enjoying life. Mick will be 90 next July, the 17th. So we certainly want to remember that and perhaps send him some cards. Also, Bobby Cap, who's probably a little younger than Mick, but Bobby is kind of homebound to a large extent, taking care of Mary Price, and he does get out. But in fact, they were in the mountains just this last weekend. But he says his golf game is suffering a little bit, but they have moved to 42 Magnolia, and so keep them in your thoughts as well. I want a couple of little, hopefully humorous things. One, I'm sorry that Jack Van Loan is not here today, or I don't see him, because I ran across this thing about why the services can't work together. And one reason the services have trouble operating jointly on any mission is that they really don't speak the same language. For example, if you told a Navy man to secure a building, he would turn off the lights and lock the doors. An Army man would occupy the building so no one could enter. A Marine would assault the building, capture it, defend it with suppressive fire in close combat. The Air Force, on the other hand, would take out a 3-year lease with an option to buy. For those of you who love the philosophy of ambiguity, as well as the idiosyncrasies of the English language, I would offer a few of these. Just wondering, if man evolved from monkeys and apes, why do we still have monkeys and apes? The main reason, maybe this is really not something you wonder about very much, but the main reason that Santa is so jolly is because he knows where all the bad girls live. I went to a bookstore the other day and asked the saleswoman where the self-help section was. She said if she told me it would defeat the purpose. What if there were no hypothetical questions? If a deaf child signs swear words, does his mother wash his hands with soap? If someone with multiple personalities threatens to kill himself, is it considered a hostage situation? Is there another word for synonym? I'm going to give you a test on all this at the end. If a parsley farmer is sued, can you garnish his wages? That's bad, isn't it? Would a fly without wings be called a wasp? Just a thought. Can vegetarians eat animal crackers? Again, why do they put Braille on the drive-through bank machines? Boy, y'all are tough today. How about this? Given our recent flooding, can an atheist get insurance against acts of God? Anyway, have a nice week.
I'd like to call forward Mason Hardy as an announcement for us.
For those of you who know my dad, those rusty jokes sounded a little bit like Archie Hardy humor too. I'm here to talk about the blood drive, which is tomorrow, and I apologize. I didn't get to y'all last week, but this was in the Rotary newsletter. You know, this past Saturday, you saw a lot of superheroes dressed up at your house. Maybe you dressed up as one as well. Tomorrow, you have a chance to be a superhero, to save somebody's life. You don't have to wear a Wonder Woman costume or Superman, Batman, whatever. You can save somebody's life tomorrow. We've got a great chance, but there's 4 locations tomorrow. Of course, y'all can save somebody's life every 56 days, no matter what day of the year it is. But tomorrow, the Rotary Club is promoting the Main Street Battle for Blood. There are 4 locations on Main Street. You can sign up at your own convenient time. The good news about just learning about this is you know if you've got 45 minutes tomorrow between the times of 10 and 3. There's free parking downtown. There's 4 locations. And instead of getting a t-shirt that says Lifesaver on it, because you are a lifesaver, you're actually going to get a pint glass. It's a new promo. But it's interesting that it's a pint glass because 1 pint of blood can save up to 3 people's lives. So be a lifesaver tomorrow. Be your own superhero. Be a superhero to the community. Give blood whenever you can. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mason. I'll now call forward Jack Sloan, who has another opportunity to serve the community.
Okay, am I near enough? This year I had really the privilege and opportunity. To me, this hits so close to home, as I'm going to be facilitating and managing and working with Roger for the Salvation Army bell ring. Now, all of us know here that in the last 2 weeks, well, actually it's more than 2 weeks now, but Salvation Army served over 55,834 meals. That's to us. That's to our friends. That's to our neighbors. That's indeed something that we club. Does do the most good? I mean, they really do. And this year, what we planned out, I looked at the numbers for last year. Last year, we were able to raise a total of $12,000, and we had 150 different time slots over the 4-week period there. This year, we're going to continue the same. We have 150 slots, and we've got 256 members, so we should easily be able to fill this. I really want to push everybody to see if we can go out in the first 2 weeks here and get all the times filled. Now, I put on everybody's on the table, there's a signed list of all the times, the slots. We have a total of 4 different locations. We're going to be doing the Bilo over on Forest Drive, the Walmart on Forest Drive, the Piggly Wiggly on Divine Street, and my favorite, Greens, the real money raiser here. So, and I really would like everybody to get signed up to help us. We need to more than exceed this $12,000 that we did last year, because what they're doing for us is right in our neighborhoods. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for stepping up and leading this year. You know, there's 2 opportunities right here before us: the opportunity to give blood, and the opportunity to ring the bell for the Salvation Army. So I hope that you'll step forward and take those opportunities, and maybe you'll do both. But just want to make sure you have opportunities to serve the community, and these are 2 good ones. I want to make a special announcement as well. We have some news to share. The Rotary Club of Columbia has now adopted a new credit card machine, a reader, the square reader. We're going to be able to take credit cards for the first time at Columbia Rotary. And that's something I've heard from members for a long time, that we don't have that option. We don't have the ability to accept credit cards at the door here for lunch or to pay your dues. And so we went ahead and took the last few weeks and got the Square Reader. Debbie knows how to use it. She's up and running with it. So, it's just another option for you. It doesn't mean you have to use a credit card. You can still pay by check or by cash at the door. But I wanted to make sure that you were all aware of it so that perhaps you'll use it in the future. But we do have one more announcement before we turn to our program today. Adam Jordan's going to come forward and share a membership update.
Thank you, President Mark, and I apologize in advance for my voice. This is not a bad Barry White impression. This is just a cold. I come bearing good news, and I'm also asking for your help. Through your collective efforts over the past calendar year, we've inducted over 20 new members into the Rotary Club, and I think that's something to celebrate. Diverse group of new members, from people who were longtime Rotarians in this club that left and decided to come back, to people who had very little introduction to Rotary up until recently. If you're one of those new members, we're having a fireside chat on November the 9th, Monday the 9th, at Mark's house, 5:30. Contact me or Mark for the address. You should have received something in the email, but if you haven't, come talk to me. That's coming up next week. So for those of you who have been active in bringing guests, and there are a number of them here today, and those who have been sponsoring new members, thank you for your service. For those of you who are looking to contribute, you have a great opportunity coming up. November 16th, Congressman Mick Mulvaney will be speaking. It'll be a tremendous program. It'll also be an ideal time to use your VIP pass before they expire at the end of the year. If you don't have a VIP pass, I'll be at the piano afterwards, and I'll be glad to give you one. So please take that opportunity, bring a guest to what will be, I think, an excellent program. So in closing, thank you again for all that you've done, for your collective efforts. Let's close 2015 strong by introducing even more people in this city to the service philosophy of Rotary.
Thank you, Adam. We'll now turn our attention to our program, and to introduce our speaker, we have Lieutenant Governor Henry McMaster.
Thank you. Thank you, President Mark. I really am happy to introduce or present Bryan Stirling to those of you who don't know him. Bryan and I have been friends a long time. He's an excellent attorney, a dedicated public servant, and he's just celebrated his how many months of marriage. He and Jenny Lynch, a lovely young lady, got married on May the 9th, 2015 on a rainy day. Bryan is I guess you'd call him a naturalized Southerner. He's born in Boston and came to school here at USC, and then went to the law school here and graduated there. His parents thereafter moved down. They live on Daniel Island now, Peter and Bobby, wonderful folks. But here's the story about Bryan. After law school, he entered government working as a staff assistant to the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation. That's Andy Card. Most of you will remember that Andy Card is the second longest serving Chief of Staff to the President of the United States in history, and was the one who, on 9/11, whispered in President Bush's ear that America was under attack. Y'all remember that. He's now the president of Franklin Pierce University in New Hampshire. Then Bryan, he worked in a law firm with me for about 10 years, and then thereafter 2 years with McAngus, Goodlock, and Curry. And then after that, he came to the Attorney General's office, where he was Deputy Attorney General for the state. He worked as a legislative liaison. He was prosecuted criminal domestic cases, and he was the lawyer in charge of the big water case we had in North Carolina, where they were stealing our water, and we had to sue them and make them stop. And he also worked under Attorney General Allen Wilson for about a year before then going to be the Chief of Staff for Governor Haley. And after being there for a year, she recognized his talent and sent him to the Department of Corrections, where he is now the director. He's been there for just over 2 years. Most of us don't know that there are staff employees of about almost 6,000 people at the Department of Corrections. It is a huge organization, 25 penal institutions across the state, and about 22,000 inmates. But Bryan's time there has been marked by innovation, with health initiatives and also work initiatives to get these people ready when they do leave prison and come back to society. So I'm happy to present to you a fine South Carolinian, my friend, and a great public servant, Bryan P. Stirling.
Thank you very much. I saw Mark this weekend. I was actually raking leaves in front of my house, and I said, "What do you want me to talk about?" And he said, "About 20 minutes." So, couple things. What I'm going to do is just kind of give an overview of the Department of Corrections. I'm going to talk about the mental health lawsuit, which came out January 2004, and then the governor appointed me to this criminal domestic violence task force, and I'm going to talk about that also. What I'd like everybody to keep in mind when I'm discussing the Department of Corrections, about 88% of the offenders that come to the Department of Corrections get out in under 5 years. When I first started, I remember I was driving out the Broad River Road and I was talking to a buddy of mine on the phone. He said, "Oh man, just lock them up, don't worry about it." I said, "Well, let me ask you this." I said, "Your daughter's 12 now. She's probably going to be at College Charleston, Clemson, USC. In about 6 or 8 years, she may be in 5 Points, or she may be in church, or she may be in the library. You have a choice. Who do you want sitting next to her at that library, or at the bar, or at church? Do you want someone that's just been put in the cell for 23 hours a day and given 3 meals and that's it? Or do you want someone that has gotten a GED, or gotten their high school diploma, gotten work keys, gotten certificates, has a reason to live, is connected back with their family? Maybe they had mental health issues and they've gotten a treatment that's what put them on their path." So I'd like y'all to keep that in mind when we speak and going forward when you see our budget requests come in. It's not just, hey, this is mental health. I like to talk to it as a continuum of law enforcement care. And Darren, Keela, his wife, worked at Triple P, and we're kind of at the end of that law enforcement continuum of care, that they may have an interaction with a police officer and then it goes to the solicitor's office and ultimately it comes to us or it goes to Triple P. So the other thing I'd like you to keep in mind is our officers. If you see a correctional officer, please thank them. They have a very difficult job, very high stress job. Sometimes it's 1 to 125 in a dorm, and it's just them in a radio, and that's it. So if you see them, they wear their uniforms around. Not a lot live downtown. Most live out by Department of Corrections on Broad River Road, but they have a very difficult job. We should all thank law enforcement and be thankful for what they want to do, but correctional officers are part of law enforcement. A couple things I want to talk about. Sitting in my office, kind of minding my own business at the State House, and the governor called me in and said, I want you to take over the Department of Corrections. You don't say no to the governor. I said, sure. Let's have a conversation about it. What would you like to see? She said, again, a lot of these folks get out, and we need them rehabilitated. Governor Haley has visited 3 or 4 prisons, to include Lee, which is in Lee County, which is one of our maximum security prisons. Under her leadership, we've gone from 24,400 people in 2010. Now we're at 20,517, 15% of which are mentally ill. Now, should those folks be at the Department of Corrections? That's a conversation that we need to have as a state and as a nation. I think the president's having it. I was speaking to some USC students the other day at a leadership class on Saturday, and talked to them about kind of a unique time in our history. We have President Obama out there visiting prisons and talking about releasing people and doing some smart things. He released some things today on what we do post-release. And then we have kind of the Rand Pauls and the conservative part saying we're over-incarcerating people. So I think it's a unique time for everybody to get together and look at how we sentence people. We had the Sentencing Reform Commission with Senator Malloy and Merle Smith chaired. My predecessor, John Osment, was on that commission. I think what they looked at was, should we lock people up that we're mad at, or should we lock people up that we're afraid of? And I think they decided that we should lock people up that we're afraid of, and our violent folks and other folks, or folks that they should be part of some community corrections. I think that's the future. I know Judge Anderson knows, he was at Judge Byers' retirement at the governor's mansion, and I know he's a good friend with Judge Byers, but Judge Byers started the Youthful Offender Act program, 17 to 25-year-olds, 55% recidivism rate. Now, under this program, what they do is they come to the Department of Corrections, they're sentenced under this program. He had the forethought, and I would say the guts, because this is a very risky population. These are folks, all the studies out there, brains are not formed until 25 or something like that. Not fully formed, still kind of hanging with the wrong crowd and probably have the wrong influences, and they're in for a life of crime. They're going to come for a little while, and then they're going to be back in front of a judge, maybe Richland County or in Lexington County, and then they're going to come for longer. Recidivism rate for this group was 55%. More than half were coming back to prison within 3 years. We were failing them as a society. Now what we have is these youthful offender officers. They don't have guns, they don't have handcuffs. What they do is they show up and they are mentors to these young men and women. So I'll give you an example. One guy, what you have to do is you have to get a job. You come to prison for a little while, you meet your mentor, youthful offender officer. He says, here's your plan on how you're going to get out. You're going to be disciplinary free, you're going to be drug free, and we're going to get you a GED or high school diploma, and you're going to have some discipline in your life, and I'm going to be the discipline in your life until you're released. One story is, one guy couldn't find a job, and they thought he couldn't read, so they're like, okay, well, we'll get you in reading classes and writing classes, everything like that. Well, guess what? He just couldn't afford glasses. He didn't know where to go. No one ever in his life had told him where to go to get glasses. They took him down to the free clinic, got him glasses, applied for a job, currently working, doing great, passed a drug test, he's in school. He is going to be someone that at $19,000 or so a year will not come back to the Department of Corrections. So it's a little bit investment up front. Community corrections, I think that is the future of where we're going. Some other things Governor Haley's done, she's closed about 3.5 prisons. We closed 1/2 of a dorm, and that's the cost savings to the state. What we do is we take our officers and we move them to other areas. One thing I did when I first showed up at Department of Corrections is it's kind of interesting when you haven't worked in it, you kind of see things from a different perspective. So I pulled up to the front gate. There's a gate there, and sat there for a minute or two and kind of looked around. No one came, so I got out of the car and knocked on the window, and no one was there. And this is at our headquarters in Columbia. We've got 5 or 6 institutions there, and this is where all our food comes from and a lot of our stuff that we deliver across the state. So I called the headquarters. I said, hey, no one's at the front gate. What's going on? I said, oh, we haven't had that thing manned for about 10 years. And, all I'd heard about was contraband problems. Contraband's coming in, contraband's coming in. Well, so with closing these prisons, we were able to man that front gate 24/7. So if you come into the Department of Corrections on Broad River Road now, you're going to have to tell them why you're there. We're going to know what institution you're going to, and you will not have unfettered access to the property, which is a very large property out there, to hide the contraband to get into the system, which is a scary thing. One of the other things, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but I've noticed, and I'm kind of proud of this for our folks, but trash on the highways. Our roads used to just be trash. There used to be trash everywhere. And I would get a text or a call from Governor Haley, because I knew where she was, because she'd say, I-85 in Greenville or 126 is messy, or this is messy, or this is messy, can you send a crew out? And finally she called me in with DOT and Highway Patrol, and we all met, and she said, y'all have to fix this. So, and my folks told me, we cannot fix this. Officer, they can't go out, we don't have this, we don't have that. So what did I start doing? I started going to our level 1 institutions where our inmates were that were collecting trash about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And guess what? The litter vans were there. They were sitting there. Those guys were supposed to be out till 2, 3, or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So after I went to the 3rd one, they figured it out. We better work all day because he's going to show up and he's not going to be happy. So we've gone from 160 inmates to 218 offenders that are picking up trash. This is in a year. Last year we picked up about 14,744 bags. This year we picked up almost 40,000 bags of litter. Our hours went from 17,000 hours of inmate labor to 43,000 hours of inmate labor. So they're out there, they're working, they're picking up trash. We partner with the Department of the State Highway Patrol, so if they see trash, they call us. What they used to do is they just, if it was Tuesday, it was mile marker 20. And that didn't make any sense. I remember in my press conference, someone from, I think it was AP, asked me, they said, well, how much more is this going to cost? And I said, it's not going to cost any more because we're going to go to where the trash is. We're not going to just drive up and down the highway and hope to find the trash. So we're doing it kind of a smarter way. Average age of someone at the Department of Corrections is 37 years old. 55% have no high school diploma or GED. I think one of the problems and a lot of the reason a lot of folks come to prison is they don't have the education, they don't have the hope. Some other things Governor Haley's done is the DO partnership. Department of Employment Workforce. We actually have a workforce center at the Department of Corrections at Manning pre-release. Judge Byers was smart enough to see that we had 3 months at our pre-release center. He expanded it to 6. I think that has helped our recidivism rate. When Governor Haley took over, our recidivism rate was 27.5%. Now we're under 25% at 24.9. The governor encourages her cabinet secretaries to talk. So Cheryl Stanton and I had breakfast one morning, and I said, I got 900 men and women leaving prison every single month without jobs. What can we do about that? She said, and I said, you know where your agency knows where the jobs are. Let's get together. So we have a Department of Employment Workforce Partnership Work Ready program where folks are there and they're signed up and everything. When they leave, they have the same person they can call, and they're in the system now. It's not once they leave. There's kind of a hole. Once they leave, there's a jump off point. And if they don't have all these things in place before they leave, then they're likely to return at a very significant public safety cost, but also the significant cost of the taxpayers. One thing that we did with Triple P and Department of Motor Vehicles is, you know, everybody has 10-year licenses now. If you were incarcerated, your license was just going away, and then you had to go reapply for a license. You had to go through that process. Some of these folks, one, they're not going to know where DMV is, and maybe they're not going to get paid. So now we just hold the license in their warden check, and when they leave, we give them their license back. Because you go apply for a job, you're not going to get hired unless you have a license. They have a letter of explanation, what they did, why they were incarcerated. They have a resume, they have work keys, they have certificates, so what they earned when they were at Department of Corrections. When I go around and I visit all the institutions, and I don't like to bring a lot of folks with me, I'll walk into the institutions. One of the things I'm trying to teach my officers and other staff members is mutual respect. And a lot of them have it, a lot of them work hard. But I walk up and I'll say, you know, what's your name? And I'll ask him to give me his name, and I'll say, why are you here? And he said, well, I made a mistake, this, that, and the other. And I look him in the eye, or her in the eye, and I said, no, you made a choice. Mistakes are out of our control. Choices are within our control. So I want them to realize that they made a choice. I said, well, you make a choice to do better. Do you have any loved ones out there you want to go see? Make a choice to do better. Get into programs. Get into class. We've partnered with SC Thrive. So there are some folks that are leaving that are going to need some programs when they leave. They're going to need medication or things of that nature. So we start the application process when they leave. One of the other things I was told was we used to drop off down there on, at the bus station, which is no longer there. I think Ernest T's place was down there too, the T-shirt of Ernest Lee. So I went down there one morning. It was actually 2 years ago, right when I started. It was Halloween morning because people were calling, complaining, saying there was a bunch of these offenders running around. And I drive through 5 Points, and I forgot it was Halloween. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning because they get dropped off around 3. And I was driving through 5 Points. What's going on down here? So I get down there, and you know, there's a bunch of guys dressed in prison tans just wandering around. They're wandering off, waiting on their bus. A lot of them were getting picked up. And I went back to headquarters. I said, it makes no sense. I mean, we're paying for bus tickets for these folks, and on the other side of the bus station, we had the prostitutes and the drug dealers and all those folks. So we partnered with the Sheriff's Department. We're paying the Sheriff's Department to be there. It's moved now, but we still have law enforcement there to make sure that these folks have a chance. Because if they get them in their grasp, I mean, it's kind of like I'll give you, the 2 hamburgers today if you pay me on Friday, and that's what they were doing. If you can get connected with a family member to get picked up, you can leave a little bit early. Some other things we're doing, this is kind of mental health, but crisis intervention. I know there's been a lot of recent publicity about law enforcement interaction with the public. Our crisis intervention training is at no cost to the taxpayers. Department, I guess it is a cost because Department of Justice, but no state cost. They train folks. We've trained 133 folks. This is de-escalation techniques. Don't always go to your weapon. Don't always go to the gas or whatever. Talk it out. Talk to the person. Ask them, what's going on. It's a 40-hour training. They come in and they get certified. We actually came up with a placard. So now if there's an incident at the Department of Corrections and someone's having a mental health problem, the officers can call one of our crisis intervention or CIT officers to come over and kind of take control of the situation. First weekend, we had an officer talk someone out of swallowing a razor blade. If you're going to swallow a razor blade, you're probably not going to have much care about other people, and you're going to hurt the officer too. It's working. We're now trained trainers, so I just spoke to a class of about 40 people, and they're using it. It's a lot less people going to disciplinary detention, things of that nature. A lot of people ask about the dog program. Hopefully everybody loves dogs. I know Henry does. But I go into the institutions, and we have dogs in prisons now. Everybody's like, what are you doing with dogs in prisons? They're in prison. They're not supposed to have dogs. Well, this was told me. I didn't see this, and I talked to the men and women that have dogs, but they're trained and they go to the Healing Species or they go to the PAL service program, so it's an adoption thing. But some of the things that they learn is dog grooming, things of that nature. So they can learn that, get their certificate, and then go out and work for a dog groomer. I remember one warden telling me that there was a guy who was in for some pretty bad crimes. Just a hulking man, as hard as the day is long. Couldn't do anything with him, just hard. And they gave him a dog. And they were supposed to go to class and the training. So the guy gets a dog and he's used to kind of just being the tough guy in prison. Everybody has to be tough in prison. So the dog wouldn't come with him. And the dog was kind of cowering and, afraid because it had been abused its whole life, kind of like this guy. And the trainer, he said, what should I do? And the trainer said, ask the dog to come with you nicely. So the guy got down on his hands and knees. This guy's like 6'4", probably 260 pounds. He's down on his hands and knees, and he whispers in the dog's ear, will you please come with me? And he pats it on the head. The dog's tail starts wagging. Guy stands up, he's bawling, crying. He said, I've never had anybody look at me like that. Anything. Need me. And I need this dog. That guy's one of our best dog trainers now. He keeps on working at it. I think he may be out, but there are multiple stories like that where that we're doing things of that nature. One of the things we're doing is character dorms. These are dorms, 10% of our offenders, so it's about 2,000 people. Allendale, and Allendale County is an entire character dorm. It's disciplinary free, self-regulated dorm. You go in there, at Lee they have one, and the group from New York comes down. I think it's every Christmas or every winter they come down and they do a symphony down there, orchestra type training, so it's self-regulation. A couple things that are problems, and y'all know about these, are cell phones. Cell phone, one of these cell phones can go for about $600 or $700 in the hands of an inmate because it is unfettered access to the outside world. You can continue your criminal ways, you can intimidate witnesses, you can try to intimidate victims. It's very dangerous. A lot of y'all know about the drone incident we had at Lee. We had another one. We've had 2 drone incidents where they were literally flying drones into our prisons with contraband. Cigarettes or tobacco, drugs, and cell phones. That person that did that, through some good detective work, is doing 15 years, ironically, at the Department of Corrections right now. We put an icon up for our website to report any kind of use of illegal cell phones. Real quick on the mental health case, the case was filed in 2005 by a class of inmates. I started October 1st, 2013. Again, October 1st, 2013, to do the math here. June 2014, I got the 45-page order from the judge. And my lawyers came to me and said, we need to appeal this. We need to fight this. I looked at him, I said, we lost. I mean, are these things true that's in this order? Yeah, but we don't have the resources. We can't do it. Here's why, and blah, blah, blah. I said, guys and lady, I said, I don't want reasons why we can't do something. I want reasons why we can. These folks are going to get out. What can we do? So I wrote the plaintiffs a letter, and I said, I'd like to sit down with y'all in arbitration across the table. I know what my people are saying, but I want to hear what your people are saying. Let's figure out what we can do together. This past summer, we announced a kind of a settlement of sorts, or an agreement, I would say. But we've been in mediation, arbitration for the last about 18 months. A little under that, sitting at the table. I've tried to attend as many as I can. I've learned a lot. We came up with a 3-year budget plan. We're going to ask for about $9 million over 3 years from the state. We're going to hire about 95 mental health folks. We're going to hire some mental health technicians. We came up with that. The kind of hybrid officers, security, mental health. And we changed our disciplinary policy. It was sort of draconian. You'd get in trouble and you could talk to your family for 10 or 15 years. I don't know about you, but after a year or so, I'd start getting really, really angry and probably not want to participate in anything going on. So we've capped our discipline. We've capped our lockup time to 60 days. It's no longer going to be stacked, so you're not going to be in lockup for year after year. You can no longer go right from lockup to the street. I didn't think that was a public safety thing. One of the other things we're doing is, it's simple stuff. People come in, they have regular street clothes on. Now we have a clothes closet because these folks were leaving, and they were leaving in their prison pants. And that's all they had. Literally, that's all they had. how do you get a job if you're going to show up in prison tans? We gave them clothes to hopefully make them successful. Briefly on the, I'm running out of time, but Governor Haley asked in January this year for me to serve on the Criminal Domestic Violence Task Force. When Henry was Attorney General, he started the pro bono program. He and his dad, actually, we used to go around and try cases. His 92-year-old dad, I think at the time, used to go around the state and try cases on the pro bono. I chair the Criminal Justice Division. We had about 70 people that wanted to serve. It was, as many people serve on committees, that was just too many people to sit around the table and get anything done. So we broke it down to data, law enforcement, prosecution, courts, and victims. And there was a lot of finger pointing going on. Courts were pointing at the prosecutors were pointing at the police. Everybody was pointing at each other. It's not my fault, it's not my fault. And I think that was good for the process. And then everybody started talking about how they could work together. Lexington's got a great program. We're working on that. We've come up with 50 recommendations. South Carolina being one of 4 states that has law enforcement officers prosecute cases. It's not fair to anybody. They don't, Robert knows they go to court, there's rules of evidence. Maybe law enforcement knows them, maybe they don't. Sometimes they may be better prosecutors than someone that just came out of law school. But in general, it's just not a smart way to be. So we're looking at changing that. Uniform forms for victims to fill out when they show up. If you think about it, a lot of folks in here may or may not have ever gone through a criminal process as a victim. But if you're kind of almost victimized twice because you go through the criminal courts. But then if you're married to the person, you have children together, you've got to go through family court. And you've got to fill out the form. If you don't fill them out right, and the abuser on the other side has a high-priced lawyer, he's going to drive a Mack truck through anything you missed in that form. So we're looking at unifying those forms, and the court really can't help automating some of the forms. We've got a statewide fatality review committee. We want to do a county one, and then that will go up to the state one. We're going to study Lexington, and we're going to do best practices for law enforcement. What do you do? Law enforcement may or may not know. You take a picture. I used to, when I prosecute cases, I'd stand there and I'd hold a picture law enforcement took 5 minutes after the incident. Well, guess what? This picture looks a lot different after 2 days than it does after 5 minutes because bruises have developed. Things are shown. So we work with them. So I guess my call to action here, and I appreciate everybody's time, is if you can volunteer, if you can become a community partner with the Department of Corrections, if you have resources or knowledge, we're trying to teach welding classes, asphalt, things of that nature. Give these folks a chance when they leave, because if not, then we're just going to be paying for them to sit in the cell for the rest of their lives. So give them a chance. If you're part of a church group, come out, volunteer. If you have a skill, come out and volunteer. If anybody has any asphalt that they want to donate, I'm not kidding, we need it. Because right now we're training with sand. We don't have, the resources. I liken it to when I was a kid. I sat with my parents, I sat at the kids' table, and it's kind of like when it comes to the budget buffet, we're out back. A lot of people don't win re-election by saying I give money to prison. That's not a good bumper sticker for re-election. So I've got to, my job and others' jobs that work there, to inform people about what we're doing and why it's important. Again, we have a choice as a state. We can just kind of let them sit in the cell for 24 hours a day and deliver food and health care to them, or we can go out and we can train them and make them successful and give them hope. Not only does it make it safer for the 5,000 or 6,000 people that work inside the Department of Corrections every day in a very stressful environment, it also makes it safer for everybody else in South Carolina. So with that, thank you, and I'll take questions.
What are your thoughts on this incident that just happened at Spring Valley High School?
I'm on the Law Enforcement Training Council, so I'm going to have to probably vote on that on some time, so it's probably best if I don't talk about it. Yes, sir.
How prevalent are gangs? We see on TV shows and what have you, this inner rivalry that almost promotes that you have to join a gang. Is that reality? Tell us kind of what gang situation is.
Gangs are very prominent. We have a gang task force that works inside and out. They're very prominent in the institutions. We had the pink jumpsuits. We got rid of those, but pink jumpsuits were for people that were public exhibitionists. lack of a better word, and the Bloods tried to become public exhibitionists so they get in the big jumpsuits and self-identify. So we did away with that. But gangs are very prevalent, and I mean, they're a part of society, and they're a part of our institutions. One of the things we've changed is, we're working on changing with mental health cases. If you left a gang, you used to have to go and kind of say everything about the gang, and it really wasn't an incentive to leave a gang. So we're kind of just saying, if you want to get out of a gang, you just tell us you're out. And we have ways of figuring out if you're in a gang. But gangs are very serious. They can be very dangerous. I told our guys, I met for the first time, we met with the inmate population. Every institution elects someone to be the leader of their institution, and I met with them for the first time, I think, since 2008. No, 1998, I think. It was a long time, and they asked about gangs, and I said, look, guys, I said, gangs are only going to get you one thing, sitting right here, or you're going to be in a box somewhere. That's all it's going to lead to. It's a very dangerous thing. So,
thank you for your time here today. What are your thoughts about how we can best incentivize businesses or companies to hire those inmates that are leaving?
Sure, and I can get you all some information, but there's actually bonds out there, and there's tax credits and things of that nature, and there's some things that you can actually hire for a time, and it won't be of any cost to you if it doesn't work out. You also can get bonded if anything happens. So there is a bunch of federal help out there that can do that. Yes, ma'am.
Can you share with us the number and kind of prison industries that you have going on in the prisons across South Carolina?
Sure. I don't know the number. I'm trying to think of something. We got the frame shop. We redo equipment, things of that nature. I will tell you, though, that prison industries, normal recidivism is 25%. If they're in prison industries, they're at 15%.
And the public can access some of these resources, such as the frame shop?
Reupholstery, things of that nature, yes. Yes, anybody can do that. And I mean, the guys love it, and the ladies love it to do it. It gives them something to do. Yes, sir?
Besides a member of Rotary, I'm also a member of SCORE, which is part of the Small Business Administration with volunteers to help people in business. Judge Bryan, as you mentioned, started a program, I don't know, it was 2011, 2012, where in the last 90 days, prisoners that are on their way out go through a training program at Manning Prison. And we've been doing that. We present once a month to the people that are getting out, along with other people that are other besides our group that do this, to help teach people. And then we do a workshop, and it varies. It could be anywhere from 60 to 150 people, depending on what's getting out that month. And we try to teach them about how to start a legitimate small business, okay? And because you might say that we had some questions to that. But anyway, we give back and try to help.
And to your point, I mean, and this, not trying to be funny or sarcastic, but some of these folks, regardless of what they've done, they're not dumb. I mean, they've had successful enterprises, I'll say. Maybe not legal, but successful. And, not afraid to do a little hard work. It's just the choices they make and the businesses they make. So thank you. Yes?
What is the situation with capital punishment in South Carolina? Is there a halt? Has there been a halt been called to execution?
There's not been a halt. We have not gotten an order. We have to get an order from the Supreme Court. However, if we did get that order, and I went and testified last year in front of the House and the Senate, we could not obtain the drugs that are needed to execute something.
Can you elaborate on that? Where do you have to get the drugs and what kind?
I mean, pharmacies, companies, you name it. We cannot get them. I went and asked for kind of a shield for these companies. Because what happens is, if the companies sell this drug to the Departments of Corrections, then they'll be subjected to a lot of attention from the anti-death penalty people. And we're no different. I mean, we've seen Ohio, which has put a halt to it. We have not put a halt to it, but we do not have the drugs and we don't have the order, but other states are putting a halt to it. I think something happened in Oklahoma where they used the wrong drugs. So I think the country is having a needed conversation about capital punishment and the time it takes to get through the courts and where we go from there. But I will be again this year asking for that shield law. The Supreme Court came out on a drug called midazolam, which was part of the protocol in other states. They were sued. The Supreme Court came out and said it's not unconstitutional to use midazolam. And some of the people that I testified in front of said they wanted to wait on that case. So we will again be going forward with that and see. But I told them, I said, without this law, we don't have a chance of getting the drugs that we've tried. So, thanks, John.
Okay, in closing, I want to call on President-elect John Backus to tell us what's coming up.
Next week, our district governor, Rod Funderburk, is going to be here. And to encourage you to come and join us for that meeting. We do have a special announcement we're going to be making at that meeting that I think you'll enjoy hearing. So, and then we also have the next week, Congressman Mick Mulvaney will be here after that. We're excited to have him come. So, next 2 weeks, hope you'll join us. Bring him in.
Great, look forward to it, John. Great work on programs this year. All right, sign up to ring the bell on the way out and stand, and we'll close with a song.